Woven versus knit. You've probably heard these words, but what do they mean? Why do you care? And which one should you be using for your sewing project? Inside of this video, you're going to learn the answer to all of these, so whether you are shopping in person or online, you're able to pick the right fabric for your next sewing project. Hi, I'm Abby, and this video is part of the Fabric Shopping Bootcamp, a free YouTube event where I have teamed up with a bunch of amazing fabric shops and pattern designers to help you shop smarter and sew with confidence. If you've ever felt overwhelmed at the fabric store or the idea of shopping for fabric online gives you like, what? How would I ever do this? Don't worry, you are not alone. It's the exact reason why I have built this event for you. Make sure to check out the description for a link to join the official event. You'll get access to all the videos, emails right to your inbox so you don't miss anything, and a chance to win over $500 in sewing prizes. Oh, it's gonna be so much fun. Now let's jump over to FabScrap and learn what the difference is between woven and knit.
Hey guys, welcome. I'm Camille Tagle, the co-founder of FabScrap. So what is FabScrap anyway? FabScrap is a textile recycling nonprofit that works with fashion brands to keep their design and production waste out of landfill. So that means all of these fabrics behind me were originally headed to landfill before we existed. But now you guys get to shop all of these amazing fabrics and give them a new life with whatever project you're dreaming up. We receive so many different types of fabrics at FabScrap, and for us to promote them for reuse, we do have to educate our community about the differences between the fabrications that we receive so that creatives like you are able to choose the best fabric possible for your project. So today we're going to be covering the difference between wovens and knits, so that if you happen to come to FabScrap and shop in person, or maybe you're browsing through our online store, you'll know exactly which fabric types are going to be the best for what you're trying to make. Okay, so now let's get into it. We're going to start with our first group of wovens here. We have a plain weave, a twill weave, and also a satin weave that we're going to be reviewing together in detail. Okay, so our first fabric that we're going to review is a classic plain weave. I'm first going to identify and find my selvage, which will help orient myself on which direction is the grain. So anything with the selvage is going to be our warp, and anything that is perpendicular to that is going to be our weft. And that's usually going to help us identify the grain of the fabric. This is especially important for wovens because wovens are very much like a grid structure. So if you see really closely on this fabric, you can identify distinct horizontal and vertical lines, creating a classic grid shape. That is the foundation of a plain weave, and an easy way to tell that this is a woven and not a knit. Also, when I'm identifying the weave of my fabric and the warp versus the weft, that will also help me stretch it to see if there is any stretch in this fabric. So with wovens, typically there isn't really much stretch unless there is a synthetic stretch added. So that would be the addition of spandex to give it that really extreme stretch, more for performance, but this really doesn't have any of that. Sometimes people may accidentally pull the bias of a woven, and because there's a natural give, they may mistake that for stretch, but that is really just a function of how the fibers and the yarns are woven, and it gives a more natural give rather than a synthetic stretch. This plain weave that we're looking at here is pretty lightweight. You can kind of almost see my hand behind it, so it is relatively on the thin side. But this would be really perfect for, let's say, a really lightweight top. You could even do a dress out of this. A lot of people use plain weaves like this for quilting. There are a lot of different uses that you could have for something like this. It's very versatile. If you're a beginner sewer, this is also something that is really great to start with. It does have the tendency to wrinkle a bit, And it could be because the specific fabric is a natural, but that is one difference with knits also, is that the recovery is not quite as good. It does end up getting a little bit wrinkled. Moving to our second weave type, which is a twill. So when you think about twills, the most commonly associated twill is denim, and denim, as many of you know, are a little bit thicker. It's perfect for bottom weight apparel, like pants, but this specific twill is actually very, very drapey, and one of the reasons that I pulled this as an example is so that you could see that the weight and the thickness of the fabrics could vary quite a bit, even if it is a similar weave type, and it could have a very, very different result. So the classic diagonal pattern here that you're seeing in the weave, that is the easiest way to identify a twill. And a twill, aside from the plain weave that we just reviewed together, is one of the most common woven fabric types. So you can see here, again, as a close-up, really distinct diagonal patterns going across the fabric. It's very, very similar to a pair of denim or jeans that you have at home if you wanted to look at those closely. But this is, again, an example of how you could have a very lightweight twill that is very drapey. So this type of twill I would definitely recommend, again, for blouses, dresses. It could even be a lining for suiting. There's a lot of different types of projects that you could use with this twill. And similarly with denim or something that is a little bit thicker, those are usually great weaves also for bottom weight, jackets, coats, etc. Okay, and moving on to our third most popular woven type is the satin weave. I'm sure if any of you guys have purchased any sort of evening wear or been shopping for dresses in the past, this probably has come across your radar. It is very, very commonly used in evening wear. The difference between this one and some of the other fabrics that I showed you is that it does have a very distinct sheen, and the surface is super, super smooth. That is very characteristic of a satin, versus the underside, which is matte. You can kind of see the difference there. I can also hold up to the camera the back and to the front so you can see the difference. We're now going to review our knits, starting with a jersey, then an interlock or double knit, and then also a ribbed knit. Now diving into knits with our first fabric is a classic jersey. This is most likely, if you have a t-shirt at home, it's going to be this type of knit. But if you look closely, it is quite different from the plain weave, the twill, the satin that we had reviewed before. You can see that there are almost loops, and that is what is characteristic of a knit. And the biggest difference actually between knits and wovens is that instead of it being a grid-like structure, it is composed of a bunch of interlocking loops. And here's the backside. You can see it also from the backside as well. Also, something to call out right away is that there is a lot of stretch, which is quite different, again, from the wovens that we reviewed together. And in each direction, there is a lot of stretch. And this specific jersey knit is actually 100% cotton. There's no spandex in here at all. But it can show you that just in terms of how, again, they're loops instead of a grid-like structure, those loops really give a lot of stretch to the construction of the fabric, which was very, very different from the wovens that we had reviewed together. A jersey knit like this could very commonly be used for a t-shirt. I'm sure you guys have also maybe seen wrap dresses. That's another example of different types of jersey knits that get used in apparel, but they are really, really common to come across, and they're one of the most popular and basic knits out there. Okay, moving on to our second knit. This is a double knit ponte, and you can already tell there's a little bit more weight, a little bit more substance to this knit versus the one that we just went over, the jersey knit, and it is because it is a double knit. So it obviously is a bit thicker, it has a bit more body, but you can see even just from a close-up on the camera, that there are still a lot of loops. They are a bit more complex because they're a double knit. But here, when I stretch it, you can see the loops that exist throughout. Again, the fabric itself is very, very stretchy, but has really great recovery. And then also, here, stretching it this way, which is, again, characteristic of the knit, very different from the wovens, is the type of stretch. But with the double knit, again, it's going to be a bit more stable. It's going to have a bit more body. It's going to be a little bit heftier, and the recovery of the stretch is going to be even better. This fabric is very versatile. It can be used for, pencil skirts and suiting or dresses, and it could even be for athletic wear or athleisure, sportswear. There's a lot of different ways that you could use this fabric. The surface is very, very smooth, and usually double knits are also reversible, where you wouldn't necessarily need to line them as well. Okay, moving on to our final knit fabric, which is a rib knit. There are really distinct, easy to identify vertical columns, which are also called wales. And these are on the face of the fabric, but also the underside of the fabric. So that also makes it kind of nice to design with because it technically is double-sided. And like the other knits, there's a lot of really great recovery after the stretch. There are quite a few different types of weights of rib knits that you could have. Also, the widths of these columns or wales could also, vary depending on the rib that you're working with. But aside from just using them as a base fabric for tops or, athleisure or athletic wear or sportswear, sometimes they're a bit more compact and denser, and they can even be used as like cuffs or necklines on sweaters or different types of t-shirts even. So another really great fabric that you've probably seen quite a bit out there, and similar to the other knits, has a lot of natural stretch because of all those loops. And here's a close-up so you can see a bit easier all of those different loops throughout. And here's the back side. And maybe you can see a little bit easier with the camera this way, how everything is just composed of loops versus that very distinct grid structure that wovens have. Okay guys, that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully that gave you a very quick but good foundation of how to start learning the difference between wovens and knits so that you're even more confident to pick the best possible fabric for your next project. Of course, fabric is super complex and there are a lot of different nuances to learn over time. So definitely make sure to check out 2 of my favorite textile books that I highly, highly recommend. One is called Textilepedia, and the other is called The Fashion Designer's Textile Directory, both of which are linked in the description below. Don't forget to check out FabScrap and to browse our online store, or if you happen to be in Brooklyn, New York, swing by our warehouse and shop with us in person.
Thank you, FabScrap, for this amazing video. Not only have we now learned the difference between woven and knit, we've also seen some of the most common weaves that you're going to run into, which just means that you are going to be even more confident making your fabric buying decisions. Are you excited? I hope the answer is yes, and I would love to know, which do you prefer to sew with, woven or knit? Or maybe you haven't tried either one. Let me know down in the comments which one you're excited to try next or which one you prefer. And while you're down there, also be sure to check out the link to FabScrap's shop. The books that she recommended are also down there. And don't forget to join the Fabric Shopping Bootcamp. By joining the official event, you'll get access to all of the videos, exclusive discounts, replays sent right to your inbox, and remember that chance to win over $500 in sewing prizes. And if you would like to be notified whenever these videos launch this month, then be sure to like and subscribe below, then hit that bell icon. That's gonna let you know as soon as a new video drops so you don't miss anything. Can't wait for the next video to drop? Check out some of my other videos here. Can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye.